My husband kicked me out of the house for the woman he was cheating on me with. He forgot this house, and the company, were mine. Watch how I leave him out on the street in 48 hours. If you like stories where the victim doesn't beg, she wipes her face, opens a folder, and turns panic into procedure. Stay with me, because this wasn't some divorce tantrum. It was a timed operation, and it started with a manila envelope hitting Italian marble like a gunshot in a silent room. The first image I want you to hold isn't romantic or sad. It's cold. The vast living room in La Moraleja, the clean echo, the vase of white lilies I'd arranged myself that morning, and the sharp thud of thick paper landing on the table. Rodrigo Salas stood in front of me with that borrowed authority some men mistake for leadership. Expensive suit, fast breath, eyes that didn't ask. They demanded, "Sign it now, Elena." His voice carried an invisible lawyer behind it. That familiar pressure of, "This is already decided." And beside him, Camilla, the new one. She didn't say a word, but her smile said everything. A smile of ownership, like someone had promised her keys. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I looked at the envelope. I looked at the rumpled sleeves of Rodrigo's Armani, as if on the way over he'd rehearsed the part of the outraged victim in the back seat of his own car. "What is this?" I asked, even though I already knew. Rodrigo leaned in, set his palm on the envelope, and lowered his voice, like he was doing me a favor. "The elegant exit. An agreement. You sign, you pack your things, and you avoid a spectacle." A spectacle. That word was his favorite threat, hinting at public shame like it was a weapon. I knew him too well enough to notice the first detail that didn't fit. He wasn't nervous. He was euphoric. This wasn't, "We need to fix this." This was, "I finally won." My phone buzzed on the side table. Short, insistent. I didn't look. Years ago I learned that in the first 30 seconds of a crisis, whoever reacts first loses. "This house isn't yours," he added, lifting his chin. "Neither is the company. I built this. I'm the CEO of Nexitech Solutions. I have the signature. I have control." Camilla let out the tiniest little laugh, like she was confirming an obvious fact. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed, because I was filing away every sentence, every posture, every useful word for the chain of custody they didn't even realize already existed. Rodrigo was performing, but not for me, for the guards, for the world, for a future case file. "You have 48 hours, he said. "After that, head of security will come remove you." I already spoke to them. That's what he said. But what I heard was something else. A deadline. A deadline is a gift, if you know how to turn it into a plan. I took the manila envelope with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated evidence, and opened it without rushing. Letterhead. Clauses. A separation agreement with terms that reeked of copy and paste. A fake trying to sound legal without being legal. When I reached the line claiming the marital property included the primary residence, I had to hold back a smile. Not because it was funny, because it was sloppy. The house was inherited. My name had been on the deed before I ever met Rodrigo. And that wasn't an opinion. It was a record. I looked up. "Who drafted this?" I asked. Rodrigo shrugged, as if legal language were just an accessory. "My lawyer, attorney," he paused on purpose. "You don't need to know. Just sign." That pause was a mistake. A crack. If it were true, he would have said the name like someone who feels protected. If he hid it, it was because the lawyer didn't exist yet, or because he didn't want me tracing him. A microsecond later, the intercom buzzed. The sound cut through the room like a dull knife. It didn't slice, but it forced you to look. I walked to the panel calmly, like I was answering any ordinary visitor. "Mrs. Elena," a deep voice said. "Mr. Aguilar, security. We have instructions from Mr. Salas to verify a situation." He said it carefully, like a man who doesn't want trouble, but is already standing in it. Rodrigo glanced at me with triumph. Camila folded her arms, comfortable, like the house had already changed owners. I pressed the button. "Mr. Aguilar," I said, "come up, please, and bring your incident log." There was a tiny pause on the other end. He didn't expect that. Most people say, "Come up," or "Don't." Nobody asks for a log. Yes, ma'am, he answered, more cautious now. Rodrigo stepped closer, lowering his voice. Don't try to get smart. You have nothing. I already talked to everyone. Contradiction. Talk to everyone, said the man, who never even knew the doorman's name. I moved to the home automation console on the wall. I touched it without activating anything yet. Just rested my fingers there, felt the cold glass. And I decided that, in the next 48 hours, this house would stop being a stage for his theater and go back to being a system under my control. My phone buzzed again, this time longer. I let myself look at the screen for the first time. A short encrypted message from a contact with no name. Confirm protocol. It wasn't a romantic code. It was my real life. Lick Medina, legal chief for Montiel Holding, a man who spoke little and executed a lot. The only kind of authority I respected. I still didn't reply. Not yet. Because first I needed one piece of data. Had Rodrigo touched the company, or was he just improvising with the house? I turned back to him. So, I said, voice neutral, explain something to me. If you own everything, why do you need 48 hours? Camilla tilted her head. Rodrigo blinked. For the first time, a shadow of discomfort. Because, he started, because that's how things are done. The nice way. Of course, I said, the nice way. The elevator doors opened at the end of the hallway. Footsteps, a throat clear. Mr. Aguilar appeared in a spotless uniform, a tablet in his hand. Behind him, two younger guards stared at the scene like they'd been called to a fire and found an awkward dinner. Aguilar greeted me with rigid formality. Mrs. de la Vega Montiel. The detail mattered. He said my last name. Not Mrs. Elena, not the wife. My full name was an administrative fact. Rodrigo stepped forward. I'm Mr. Salas, resident, and... Aguilar lifted a hand, discreetly. Sir, I do have instructions to verify a situation. Yes, but first... His eyes dropped to the tablet. I need to confirm legal ownership before I act inside the property. Rodrigo swallowed. Camilla stopped smiling. I didn't pull out deeds. I didn't perform. I simply said, the title is in my name. If you'd like, I can call Notary Calderon right now and authorize a simple copy. Aguilar looked at me the way you look at someone who knows exactly what she's saying. That won't be necessary, ma'am. With your ID and the community registry, I can... He paused. Mr. Salas, what exactly are you requesting? Rodrigo recovered fast. Fake authority, rebuilt out of air. That she leaves the residence. Today, with her things. Under my supervision. Aguilar hesitated. That would require an order or a signed agreement. I can't. His gaze flicked to the manila envelope on the table. Is it signed? Rodrigo looked at me like a judge waiting for a verdict. I set the envelope down on the marble, gently. It's not signed, I said. And it won't be. Like this. The silence was so clean I could hear the distant hum of the air conditioner. Camila let out a theatrical sigh. Elena, don't make the inevitable difficult. I turned to her for the first time. I looked at her the way you look at spam. No emotion, searching for the fraudulent link. What's inevitable, Camila, is the law. Rodrigo tensed. Don't get technical. I'm technical by profession, I replied, and by survival. Aguilar cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Ma'am, if there's no order and no valid agreement, I can't remove anyone. Mr. Salas, if there's a dispute, this must be handled through institutional channels. Institutional. There was the door I needed. Rodrigo smiled without teeth. Perfect. We'll do it institutionally. My lawyer will handle it. I nodded as if I'd accepted an ordinary threat. Right then, Doña Inez appeared from the kitchen. Silent, like she'd been waiting for a cue. She didn't ask questions. She didn't make drama. She simply stood at my side with a dish towel in her hand and the steady gaze of someone who has watched too many new girls walk in with entitlement. She whispered, barely moving her lips, Ma'am, the hallway camera is recording with audio like you asked, and the router is already in secure mode. A shock of calm ran through me. Procedure activated. First piece in place. My phone buzzed a third time. This time, a call. Screen. Ems. Rios. Nexatech's executive secretary. The person who saw everything, filed everything, and pretended to see nothing. If she was calling at that hour on a Friday night, it meant one thing. Someone had touched a system they shouldn't. I answered without taking my eyes off Rodrigo. "Rios." Her voice came low, fast, scared. "Mrs. de la Vega Montiel, your building access card shows as deactivated, and someone tried to log into your server account with your username 10 minutes ago." Rodrigo, without realizing it, had just given me the confirmation I needed. This wasn't a divorce. It was a hostile takeover, and the 48-hour clock had just started counting for real. I looked at Rodrigo, then Camila, then Aguilar, and spoke with the calm of someone deciding the order of operations. "Mr. Aguilar," I said, "please log this incident in your system. And don't let anyone else in without my authorization." Rodrigo opened his mouth to protest, but I was already typing a single encrypted message, thumb steady. "Confirmed, execute Black Swan Protocol, T4750. When I hit send, I felt something unexpected. Not joy, not rage, a clarity, almost clinical. Then, from the hallway, I heard a soft click, like an interior door closing on its own. Doña Inés lifted her gaze toward the corridor. "Ma'am, someone is inside, and it isn't security." The click had come from the corridor, and in a house like mine, sounds aren't accidents, they're records. Doña Inés didn't move first out of fear, she moved out of method. She looked to me for authorization. I nodded once. Minimal. Aguilar and the two younger guards tightened, but didn't advance. Rodrigo, instead, took half a step toward the hallway, as if the place belonged to him by decree. Camilla followed, chin high, ready to witness my humiliation. "No one messes with my house," Rodrigo said loudly, making it sound like an order. There it was. Fake authority. Volume instead of backing. I raised a hand. No theatrics. "Aguilar, you don't enter without protocol," I said. "And you, Rodrigo, don't either. This residence has cameras with audio. Whatever you do now will be in the chain of custody." It stopped him. Not from ethics. Instinct. Predators hate light. My phone buzzed again. I didn't answer. In that moment, the priority was confirming whether the someone was a real intruder, an extra guard Rodrigo had called, or a staged move to force me out. In a thriller, danger doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it carries a poorly signed authorization. I moved to the home automation console and opened the event panel. A clean list: main door, auxiliary lock, hallway motion sensor, west wing camera, all time-stamped, all stamped. Motion detected. Interior hallway, 22-10-14. Study door opened, 22-10-19. The study. My study. Rodrigo saw it in my face, or guessed it from where my eyes went. "What are you hiding in there?" he asked, and the question gave him away. It wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "Where is what I came for?" Camilla smiled again, but now it was nervous, like the plan had a variable they hadn't explained to her. Doña Inés whispered, "I locked the study an hour ago, ma'am. With your key." Perfect. If someone opened it, either the lock was forced, or a copy was used, or, worst case, someone in security had master keys. Aguilar cleared his throat, uneasy. "Ma'am, if there's an intrusion, I can send a man to check." "No," I said. "You stay here. I'll check through the system." The younger guards exchanged looks, as if waiting for me to do the normal thing: scream, beg for help, lose control. Instead, I pulled up the interior hallway camera on the house tablet. HD audio, exactly as Doña Inés had configured it. The screen showed the corridor. The lighting was dim. At the far end, the study door ajar. Then a lateral movement, small, fast, no uniform, not security, not police, not Rodrigo. A hooded figure, hood for anonymity, not style, crossed the hallway and disappeared into the study. Camilla lifted a hand to her mouth. Dramatic. Rodrigo clenched his jaw, but his eyes weren't surprised. They were calculating, and that lit my suspicion. If he isn't surprised, he expected that movement. "You knew," I said, not raising my voice. "I don't know what you're talking about," Rodrigo answered too quickly. The audio caught a whisper inside the study, barely audible, but the house doesn't forgive. I raised the volume, filtered background noise from the panel. A basic adjustment I learned the year Nexitech tried to sell me the idea that technology is magic. It isn't. It's record. A male voice, low, saying, "Quick, the blue folder, the USB." Blue folder. That cold punch in my stomach wasn't fear. It was confirmation. In my study, there was a blue folder. Not photos, not memories, holding Montiel documents, drafts of the Black Swan Protocol, and certified copies of the prenup. A bundle that becomes leverage in the wrong hands. Rodrigo looked at me like I hadn't heard a thing. "See," he said, "this place is unsafe. Get out of here. I'm telling you for your own good." For your own good was a fake key meant to unlock my decision. I saw it clearly. They were creating chaos to get me out of the house. And while I was outside, they'd have minutes to wipe evidence or steal the folder. The intrusion wasn't an accident. It was a tool. I watched the screen again. The silhouette came out of the study carrying something flat under one arm. The color wasn't clear, but the shape was folder-sized. Doña Inez breathed in beside me. "Ma'am." "I know," I said. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. "Atty, Medina." I answered without taking my eyes off the virtual hallway. "Medina." "Elena," his tone was dry. "Received. Black Swan Protocol is in execution. Estimated time to first corporate lock, 30 minutes. But I need one thing. Rodrigo is with you right now." "Yes, and he isn't alone." 2 seconds of silence. In his world, 2 seconds is a full briefing. "Then listen precisely," he said. "Don't confront, don't negotiate. Keep them within visible perimeter. And activate a legal hold on all logs, especially demotics and cameras. If someone touches your study tonight, tomorrow won't be a discussion. It'll be a case. It's already HD audio," I said. "Good. Second, call Notary Calderon. I need a simple copy of the deed and the prenup seal first thing in the morning. Third, Rios is isolating access. Someone tried to use your server credentials. That gives us a direct line to audit." As he spoke, I watched the intruder approach a side door leading to the garden. A partial blind spot. A design flaw I'd hated for years. "Someone's moving to the side exit," I said. "I'm going to lock it. Lock it without alarms. Don't let them know you lost the folder. If you lost it," he corrected. "Could be a distraction. Confirm first." I hung up without goodbye. Not rudeness. Efficiency. I opened the lock panel and selected soft containment mode. Close secondary exits with a 10-second delay. No siren, no lights. A lock that feels like coincidence. Like the door is heavy. Like the mechanism is failing. People blame themselves before they blame the house. I hit confirm. On screen, the intruder twisted the side door handle. Once, twice, then stopped. Looked back. And then the audio picked up a sentence behind me. In the living room, spoken quietly, thinking I was absorbed in the system. "Rodrigo. If she doesn't leave today, we remove her tomorrow with an order. And the rest, I'll handle tonight." The rest was my study, my folder, my corporate life. I turned slowly and looked at him with a calm that unsettled him. "Who were you talking to, Rodrigo?" Camilla stepped in, trying to seize the spotlight. "Elena." "Enough. Don't make a scene. Just sign. You don't have to—" "Don't speak for him," I cut in, still soft. "And you don't set deadlines in my house." Aguilar cleared his throat, searching for a procedural exit. "Ma'am, this is escalating. If there's an intrusion, I could call the national police." "Not yet," I said. "If police come in now, Rodrigo will turn this into a couple's drama. I need it to be what it is. An attempted asset manipulation." The young guard on the right took an involuntary step, as if his body wanted to act on reflex. Aguilar stopped him with a look. "Good. Institutional authority. Beginning. Discipline." My phone buzzed with a new message. "Ems. Rios. Confirmed. Your corporate card was deactivated from internal console. Action executed by user, Arasalas ADM. Rodrigo had deactivated my card with his admin credentials. That wasn't domestic conflict. It was control abuse. On camera, the intruder abandoned the side door and moved back toward the study, as if receiving new instructions, as if someone had said, "Not that way, not yet." My pulse didn't rise. My mind did. Doña Inez, I said without looking. Is Mr. Esteban in the garage? Yes, ma'am, she answered immediately. Tell him not to come up. Prepare car B and check the trunk, see if anything's missing. Camilla frowned. Car B? What are you talking about? I didn't answer. She didn't have the right. Rodrigo tried to retake ground with his CEO voice. Elena, you're losing it. You're inventing intruders to avoid signing. It's simple. You leave, I stay. Fake authority, corporate edition. Turning a crime into a difference of opinion. I tapped the screen and selected Capture Clip. 5 minutes, audio plus video, automatic hash. A sealed file with a fingerprint. Chain of custody. Aguilar, I said. I need your full name for the record, and the incident number you're generating right now. Rodrigo's eyes widened. What are you doing? What you claim to do in your company. Compliance, I said. Aguilar swallowed and checked his tablet. Manuel Aguilar Sanchez incident, he typed. 2025-1205 IM 17. It wasn't an accident that the date sat there. The night of December 5th, the start of my countdown. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Ems, Calderon, notary office. The speed surprised me. Medina didn't waste time. I answered, Ms. Calderon. Mrs. de la Vega Montiel. Her voice was formal, firm. I'm told you require copies and verification of a prenuptial document and a deed. Is it urgent? I looked at Rodrigo. He was listening, pretending he wasn't. Camila went still, as if she'd finally realized there were things bigger than an affair. It's urgent, I said. I need ownership verification and a simple copy first thing. And I need to register a communication. Right now, inside my home, there is pressure to sign a private agreement under irregular circumstances. A brief silence. Then the notary became sharper, more procedural. Understood. Preserve everything. Sign nothing. Tomorrow at 8:30, you will have the copy and confirmation. Thank you. I hung up. Rodrigo gave a short, forced laugh. A notary. Seriously. Elena, that won't save you. I didn't answer that sentence. I answered the invisible one. What is the intruder doing now? I returned to the camera. The study door opened wider. The silhouette leaned out. And then something happened that froze my blood for a second. He wasn't alone. Behind him, another shadow, taller, holding a small rectangular device, a jammer, a basic signal blocker. My mouth went dry. If they jammed the signal, they could cut my evidence, interfere with backups, turn my smart house blind. Doña Inez saw it on my face. What is it, ma'am? I spoke without emotion, because emotion was a luxury then. They're trying to neutralize the signal. Aguilar stepped forward. That's illegal. Yes, I said, and it's also the perfect proof. If we do this right. Rodrigo tightened his jaw at the word proof. Camila took a step back for the first time. I opened the network panel and activated Plan B, what Medina had taught me to always keep. Local backup, plus queued auto-export to the holding server when connection returns. Even if they jam now, the system stores and sends later. Evidence doesn't vanish, it waits. Then, from the real hallway, not the screen, came a soft knock. Tap, 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 like knuckles. Someone was knocking on the study door from the inside, like asking permission. And a male voice, unfamiliar, said loudly, Mr. Salas, I've got it. Rodrigo went still for a moment too honest. I looked at Rodrigo. He looked at me, and I understood the first big truth of that night. The intrusion wasn't against me, it was for him. The Black Swan Protocol was already moving, but Rodrigo had just shown me he had a protocol of his own, and whatever they'd gotten could decide who controlled the company by dawn. Without taking my eyes off Rodrigo, I asked the question that forced him to choose between lying and being recorded. Who is in my study, Rodrigo? For a fraction of a second, I saw him decide, not with words, with pupils. That micro-shift a man used to commanding can't control. Then he recovered. Too late. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, his voice louder than necessary. There's an intruder. That's all. Fake authority. It wasn't me edition. From the hallway, the voice returned, more impatient. Mr. Salas, I've got it. Do I come out? Camilla opened her mouth like she was about to say, "This is out of control," but stopped herself. Aguilar looked from Rodrigo to me, trying to obey someone without stepping into a crime. I didn't answer the man in the study. I answered the systems, because that's what an adult does when she understands the scene is a screen. I opened the panel and activated Perimeter Containment Level 1. Silent interior door locks, elevator lockout, and sensor presence logging. No alarms, no lights, just doors that stop cooperating. My phone buzzed. Another message from Rios. Detecting attempt to export domestic camera feed from your IP. Cut it. Camera export. They wanted the video, not just the folder. They wanted to control the story. I typed without hesitation. Cut. Legal hold. Take a snapshot. Aguilar watched me with a mix of respect and fear. Ma'am, if someone's inside, I have to intervene. Intervene by recording, I said. I want it clear you did not act on private orders, but on intrusion risk. Note, possible signal jammer. That elevates it. Rodrigo laughed shortly. A jammer? Elena, you're imagining things. I stepped close enough for him to hear me without it looking like a physical challenge. Rodrigo, your Arsalis ADM user deactivated my corporate badge. I glanced at the console clock. 12 minutes ago. The camera caught it. That isn't divorce. That's access control. And it leaves a trail. Camilla swallowed. For the first time, her contempt deflated. You don't have proof, she said, but it sounded like a plea. I raised the house tablet and showed the hashed, sealed clip. I have more proof than you think, I said. On the screen, the study door shifted as if someone tried to open it from inside. It wouldn't budge. The silent bolt was already set. A thud. Hey! The unknown voice, harsher. What's wrong with this door? Rodrigo took a quick step toward the hallway. Open it, he ordered me, without thinking. And there was the perfect contradiction. The man claiming, I don't know who that is, was issuing commands like he was on his team. Aguilar noticed. His eyes narrowed. The younger guards exchanged confused looks, and I felt the ground tilt, not by force, but by coherence. Do you know him? Aguilar asked Rodrigo directly. Rodrigo tried to pivot smoothly. He's a technician. I hired him today for security. Elena is paranoid and a technician with no ID in private rooms, I cut in. And on the same night, someone coincidentally tries to jam signals and export cameras. Aguilar, call the National Police. I'm requesting presence for intrusion verification and evidence preservation. Camilla whispered a small, no. Rodrigo flushed red. Don't you dare. We handle this here. Exactly, I said. Here, with a record. Aguilar hesitated, then, maybe out of self-preservation, pulled out his corporate phone and dialed. The word police changes the kind of lie people dare to tell. As he spoke, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Mr. Esteban. I answered without displaying it. Ma'am. His voice was low, hardened. I'm in the garage. I saw movement on the side through the exterior cameras, not security. Don't come up, I said. Plan B, discreet exit. In 10 minutes I need you on Calle Serrano, in front of Miss Calderon's notary office, with the black case from the compartment. No stops. Understood. That black case wasn't cash. It was worse for Rodrigo. Paper with seals. Certified copies, contracts, annexes, the version nobody could lose in a study. My phone buzzed again. Medina. Elena, he said. We're already locking credentials. I'm activating internal audit on Rodrigo's access and a log hold. But I need confirmation. Do you have the secret investment agreement with you? I looked at the camera, looked at the study door, thought fast. There's a blue folder they think is the original, I said. But the original is where it should be. Good. Medina exhaled something like relief. Let them think they won. And listen, Black Swan Protocol has a checklist. We execute in order. I opened my notes app and marked 3 items like scalpels. 1. Official documentation. Deed plus prenup with infidelity clause. 2. Logs, server. Hold access records, Arsalis ADM. Plus, Hashed home cameras. 3. Finance. Trace transfers to Camilla, plus preventive freeze at the bank. I'm with you, I told him. Go. Step 1, legal. Tomorrow, 8:30 notary. Step 2, corporate. I'll convene the board in an extraordinary session for attempted control sabotage. Step 3, financial. I already contacted Risk. Different Calderon. If we find movement to Camilla, we have grounds to freeze. Rio saw export attempts, I said. Perfect. That feeds the trap within the trap. If Rodrigo tries to erase or move evidence, he incriminates himself. Keep him talking, make him say things, and sign nothing. I hung up. Police, board, bank, notary. In 30 minutes, Rodrigo would stop being the CEO who commands and become a file. The hallway sounded again, this time the voice inside the study, realizing he was locked in. Mr. Salas, open this, damn it! Camilla stepped back as if the profanity splashed her. Rodrigo, she whispered. What did you do? Rodrigo ignored her. He turned to me, and the charm fell away. He wasn't performing for guards anymore. He was talking to the woman who knew his entire history. This got out of hand, he said. Open that door now, or I will. You won't, I said simply, because you don't control the system anymore. And that's when I saw real panic. The panic of a man who thought he had the wheel, only to realize he'd been pressing the horn. My phone buzzed with a message from Rios. Cut executed. Export attempt blocked. Log saved. Also, I detect a scheduled transfer from corporate account to CM tomorrow, 09 Owang. CM Camilla. Not the kind of detail you invent, not the kind of detail a bank ignores. I replied, capture, send me proof, plus authorization. Maintain hold. Aguilar ended his call. They're coming, he said. Patrol on the way, and, he looked at me, they recommend keeping everyone in the living room and not altering the scene. Scene. I liked that word, because I already knew what they didn't. Rodrigo had staged a scene to throw me out, and I was giving him a bigger one back, uniforms, and an incident number. Then the doorbell rang. Not the intercom. The real front door bell. The sound tightened everyone. Rodrigo adjusted his watch without noticing. Camilla touched her hair. The younger guards straightened. Aguilar opened remotely through the building panel. 2 national police officers entered. Behind them, a third with a rigid folder. Judicial support. The kind who speaks little and records everything. Good evening, the first officer said. Who is the registered owner of the residence? I stepped forward, not out of pride, out of procedure. Elena de la Vega Montiel, I said, registered owner. There's pressure to sign a private agreement, an attempted eviction without an order, and an intrusion into my study. Also attempted signal jamming and camera manipulation. Everything is recorded. The judicial agent looked up and wrote my name with precision. Rodrigo moved immediately. I'm Rodrigo Salas, husband, resident, CEO of... Sir, the second officer interrupted, polite but firm. Your title doesn't apply here. Do you have a court eviction order or a signed agreement? Rodrigo pulled open the manila envelope and waved it like a flag. Here. The officer looked at it the way I did. Paper without backing. Is it signed by the lady? He asked. Rodrigo looked at me, pleading without meaning to. I kept my face still. No, I said. Then there is no eviction. The officer closed. And if there's an intrusion, we're verifying. The judicial agent looked at Aguilar. Incident number. 2025-12-05 IM 17, Aguilar answered fast, like a prepared student. The officer nodded, then looked toward the hallway. Where's the study? I pointed. Back door. Someone is inside right now. Rodrigo lunged a step. No, don't go in. That's private. The tone betrayed him. Not I'm protecting privacy. I'm protecting my plan. The officer looked at him with the calm of someone who has heard 1,000, it's just a misunderstanding. Sir, if there is an unidentified person inside the residence, it's not private. It's a risk. They moved down the corridor. I followed at the correct distance, neither leading nor obstructing. Doña Inés stayed behind, still, like silent custody. Camilla remained in the living room, frozen, listening to her opportunity crack apart. In the hallway, one officer knocked on the study door. "National Police, open up." Silence. Then a quick whisper, like someone searching for an exit. I opened the lock panel and set it to controlled opening. Open, record, relock. "Now," I said. The door opened, and the man stepped out with his hood half fallen, holding the chagdun blue folder. For a second, I thought it was the end of a chapter. Then I saw what was in his other hand, a small rectangular device, the jammer, and stuck to the edge of the folder, almost invisible, a tiny black square, my tracking tag. I hadn't just caught him inside, I'd marked him. The officer restrained him with professional firmness. No violence, just control. Identification. The man stammered a fake name. Rodrigo tried to speak for him. "He's mine. He's a tech. Sir, be quiet," the judicial agent said, writing everything down. I extended my hand for the blue folder, retrieving stolen property without drama. The officer handed it to me. And then, when I opened it in front of everyone, the thing Rodrigo didn't expect happened. There were no documents, just a single sheet, centered, with a phrase printed in large letters. "If you're reading this, you're already inside the protocol." Rodrigo went pale. Camilla made a strangled sound, and my phone buzzed with a message from Medina, like a silent gunshot. "Confirmed. Rodrigo attempted to trigger a control clause tonight, but you just handed audit the proof that neutralizes him. Next step, board in 30 min. Ready?" I lifted my eyes from the paper, looked at Rodrigo, and for the first time that night let my voice have an edge. "There were 47 hours left," I said. "And you just spent the first ones without even knowing it." The officer held the intruder. The judicial agent requested the device. Aguilar breathed like he'd stepped back from a cliff. Rodrigo swallowed and finally said something true, even if he didn't want to. "What is the Black Swan Protocol, Elena?" I didn't answer, because in that moment, from the living room, my corporate phone rang, an internal line that only appeared in emergencies. Board of Directors. Extraordinary session. And I knew the next move wouldn't happen in my house. It would happen in the room where Rodrigo always felt untouchable. I answered. "Elena speaking." And the voice on the other end said, flat, "Mrs. de la Vega Montiel. The bank is on the line. They've detected a transfer order in Camilla's name. It's minutes from executing, unless you authorize a block right now." And before I could respond, behind me in the hallway, a voice spoke in an icy whisper. "Doña Inés, ma'am, Mr. Esteban is calling. He says he's being followed." At the same time, the board line stayed open, and the same dry voice repeated, "The transfer order to Camilla is minutes from executing, unless you authorize the block now." 2 fronts, 1 clock. I didn't pick the most emotional. I picked what kept the system alive. Financial containment. First, because money moves everything else. "Put me through to risk," I said to the board. No ceremony. A new voice came on, colder still, office doors closing in her accent. "Mrs. de la Vega Montiel, this is Mrs. Fuentes, risk. Confirm. Are you requesting a preventive block on the scheduled transfer to CUM?" "Yes. And I'm requesting a block for suspected credential abuse," I replied. "Reason? Documented access deactivation, home intrusion with signal jammer, and execution from an admin user not authorized for finance." "I need documentation," she said. "You'll have it in 2 minutes. Miss Rios is preparing the receipt and console log. And there is a judicial agent in my home taking an official statement." At the words judicial agent, her tone shifted. Fewer questions, more procedure. "Understood. I'm placing the order in temporary suspension for 10 minutes. Send support. 10 minutes bought. Not victory, oxygen." I ended the board call and immediately answered Esteban. "Esteban, ma'am." His voice was low, controlled. "I'm heading to Serrano like you said, but there's a car behind me since the exit. Gray, not random." "Don't speed up," I said. "Don't lose them. Confirm the pattern. Plate? Can't see from this angle. Fine. Protocol change. Don't go straight to Serrano. Go to relay point B. Underground parking, Castellana entrance, level 2, public cameras. Witnesses. Understood. The intruder was still restrained in the hallway. Rodrigo stood a few steps back, trying to look outraged, but his breathing gave him away. Camilla didn't move. When a script breaks, people wait for direction. I turned to the judicial agent, the blue folder in my hand. "I need this incorporated into the statement," I said, showing the sheet with the protocol phrase. "And the device as well, please." The judicial officer extended his hand toward the signal jammer. He picked it up with gloves and slipped it into a sealed evidence bag. That gesture, plastic, zip, signature, was music. Chain of custody. The favorite phrase of people who don't believe in miracles, but do believe in records. Rodrigo stepped forward. "This is abuse. You're staging a movie. That man has nothing to do with me." The police officer looked him dead in the eye. "Then, sir, why did he ask you, should I leave? We have it on audio, and you ordered open when the door locked." Rodrigo blinked twice. He looked for Camilla. Camilla avoided his gaze. I didn't argue. I opened the smart home app and showed the judicial officer the event panel, the time the study door opened, the lock activation, the exit attempts. I pointed to the sealed clip. "This has an automatic hash," I said. "And it's queued for export to the holding server. Even if they block the signal, the system sends as soon as it reconnects." The intruder lifted his head, alerted. He looked at Rodrigo, and there, for the first time, I saw real fear in the wrong man, not of the law, but of his boss. "I don't know anything," the intruder said. "They paid me to retrieve a folder. That's all." Rodrigo took an explosive step. "Shut up." The officer stopped him with a gesture. "One more comment like that, and I'll remove you, sir." Remove you meant you stop controlling the air. Rodrigo swallowed and stepped back. My phone buzzed. A message from Rios. Attached, Arisalis ADM log, credential deactivation plus attempted camera export, and a transfer order to CM signed with the corporate token. Should I send it to the bank plus Medina? I typed, "Send to the bank and Medina. Copy audit." Legal hold. Doña Inez came close, just enough that no one else could hear. "Ma'am, Camilla is staring at her bag like she's looking for something." I glanced sideways. Camilla had her phone in her hand, under her coat. Her thumb was moving fast. She wasn't writing poetry. She was triggering Plan C. "Aguilar," I said out loud, "please ask everyone to keep their phones visible. It's standard procedure in the presence of police." It wasn't standard, but it sounded standard, and sometimes that's enough. The officer nodded and issued the instruction. "Phones on the living room table, please." "Everyone." Rodrigo hesitated. Camilla pressed her lips together. "Me too," she asked, offended. "You too," the officer replied, flatly. Camilla set her phone down with excessive care, like it was poison. That confirmed it. There was something important in it. A message, a contact, an order waiting to be executed. Before the situation could scatter, I closed the loop with the bank. I opened the encrypted email Medina had prepared for emergencies and forwarded Rios's logs, the incident number, and the confirmation that a judicial officer was present. 3 lines, 3 attachments, no story, just support. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with confirmation from Miss Fuentes. Preventive freeze applied, order suspended, internal file opened, requires complaint official report within 24 hours. Perfect. The freeze was live. Rodrigo felt it without me saying a word. Some men sense a bank freeze the way they sense the lights going out. "What did you do?" he whispered, pale. "I applied containment," I said, "to your abuse." And then, as if the universe wanted to add pressure, the intercom rang again. This time it wasn't the gated community security. It was the Castellana building, the office. Nexatech's internal line that I knew Rodrigo controlled, until today. A metallic voice came through the living room speaker. "Mrs. de la Vega Montiel, this is building reception. There's a courier insisting on delivering an envelope, only to Mr. Salas. He says it's urgent for the CEO." Rodrigo straightened, recovering that "I'm in charge here" posture. "See," he said, "everything is still on track. I'm the CEO. This," he pointed at the police, the judicial officer, the intruder, "this changes nothing." I didn't answer with pride. I answered with procedure. "Put Mr. Aguilar from the building on, please," I asked the speaker, "and have that envelope logged and photographed before it's delivered, with timestamp and with CCTV. There was a pause. Then, understood. Rodrigo tensed. Camilla's eyes widened, alarmed. If that envelope was part of their plan, I had just pulled it into chain of custody from a distance. The judicial officer looked at me as if to say, "You do this often." No, I just learned fast. Rodrigo inhaled and switched tactics. "Elena, enough. Let's talk like adults. Let's sign an agreement. I'll give you a dignified exit." Dignified exit. Translation: leave the scene before I lose. "I won't sign under pressure," I said. "Not with your track record," Camilla finally snapped. "You don't have a track record. You're just jealous. Rodrigo chose me." It was a clumsy, emotional scream, and that made it useful, because screams leave sentences you can't take back. I stepped toward the living room table where the phones sat, and without touching them, I looked at Camilla's. The screen was still lit. A pop-up alert was visible from above, like it wanted to help me. Code received, 6 digits, confirm sign-in. Sign-in. To what? I didn't know yet, but I knew the direction. Access. I looked at Rodrigo. "Are you trying to get into my accounts through her phone?" I asked, clearly, so it would be on record. "No," he said too fast. The intruder, still restrained, muttered, "They told me after the folder came the digital signature." There it was. Digital signature. Token. Access. A trap inside the trap. They didn't just want to throw me out. They wanted to use my absence and confusion to trigger a digital consent, a click, a token, a confirmation, something that would later sound legal. I took one breath and decided it was time to raise the main curtain. The Black Swan Protocol wasn't just a name, it was a reversal mechanism. I opened my encrypted email and pulled up the message Medina had kept in drafts. "Activate Black Swan Protocol, buyback clause at 0 nominal value." I didn't send it, I just left it ready. Then my phone buzzed with a call from Medina. "Tell me," I answered. "Board is on. Audit 2, he said. "Rodrigo is trying to convene a parallel meeting with his lawyer to declare you temporarily unfit due to instability." It's smoke. "But we have something. Talk. The prenup. The infidelity clause has a trigger. If there's documentary proof and it's activated notarized, Rodrigo loses rights to indirect participation and linked benefits. And with the secret investment agreement, we can execute the buyback and take his stake to 0 nominal." I felt the ground stabilize under my feet. This wasn't revenge, it was math. "How do we activate it?" I asked. "I need 2 things, he said. 1, proof of infidelity in chain of custody, something strong. 2, your presence, even by video call, before Notary Calderon to record it." I looked at Camilla. I looked at Rodrigo. I looked at Camilla's phone with the code prompt still glowing, and I understood the detonator was right there, waiting, like a fish biting the hook without knowing the line is already tied to a boat. Just then, the living room speaker clicked on again. Reception sounded nervous. "Mrs. de la Vega Montiel, the envelope for Mr. Salas has been photographed, but it has a notary seal, and the courier says if it isn't delivered within 5 minutes, it executes automatically." Rodrigo lifted his head as if he'd just heard the word salvation. "See," he whispered. "That's it. I've already won." I didn't move. I just looked at the officer and the judicial officer. "I want that envelope held and logged," I said. "Because if it executes automatically, then it isn't an envelope. It's a trigger." And in my ear, Doña Inez murmured the sentence that iced my pulse for the first time all night. "Ma'am, the intruder didn't come alone. Outside, by the hallway window, there's another man with a briefcase, and he's staring straight at this house." Before things could scatter, I closed the loop with the bank. I opened the encrypted email Medina had prepared for emergencies and forwarded Rios's logs, the incident number, and the confirmation that a judicial officer was present. 3 lines, 3 attachments, no story, just support. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with a reply from Ms. Fuentes. "Preventive block applied. Order suspended. Internal case opened. Formal complaint, record required within 24 hours." Perfect. A hard block, in place. Rodrigo felt it without me saying a word. Some men sense a bank freeze like someone killing the lights. "What did you do?" he whispered, pale. "I applied containment," I said, "to your abuse." And then, like the universe wanted to add pressure, the intercom sounded again. This time it wasn't the gated community security. It was the Castellana building, the office, Nexitec's internal line, one I knew Rodrigo controlled. Until today. The voice came through the living room speaker, metallic. "Ms. de la Vega Montiel, this is building reception. There's a courier insisting on delivering an envelope only to Mr. Salas. He says it's urgent for the CEO." Rodrigo straightened, regaining that air of, "I run this place." "See?" he said. "Everything is still moving. I'm the CEO. This," he gestured at the police, the judicial officer, the intruder. "This changes nothing." I didn't answer with pride. I answered with procedure. "Put Mr. Aguilar from the building on me, please," I asked the speaker, "and have that envelope logged and photographed before it's handed over, with a timestamp, and with CCTV. A pause. Then, "Understood." Rodrigo went rigid. Camilla's eyes widened, alarmed. If that envelope was part of their plan, I had just pulled it into custody from miles away. The judicial officer looked at me like I did this often. I didn't. I just learned fast. Rodrigo inhaled and switched tactics. "Elena, enough. Let's talk like adults. Let's sign an agreement. I'll give you a dignified exit." Dignified exit. Translation. Leave the scene before I lose. "I don't sign under pressure," I said, "and especially not with your record." Camila finally snapped. "He doesn't have a record. You're just jealous. Rodrigo chose me." It was a clumsy, emotional scream, and that was exactly why it mattered. Screams leave sentences you can't take back. I moved toward the living room table where the phones were, and without touching them, I looked at Camilla's. The screen was still lit. A pop-up notification was visible from above, as if it wanted to help me. Code received, 6 digits, confirm, sign in. Sign in. To what? I didn't know yet, but I knew the direction. Access. I looked at Rodrigo. "Are you trying to get into my accounts through her phone?" I asked, clearly, so it would be on record. "No," he said too fast. The intruder, still restrained, muttered. "They told me after the folder came the digital signature." There it was. Digital signature, token, access. They didn't just want to throw me out. They wanted to use my absence and confusion to force a digital consent, a click, a token, a confirmation, something that would later look legal. I took one breath and decided it was time to lift the main curtain. The Black Swan Protocol wasn't just a name, it was a reversal mechanism. I opened my encrypted email and pulled up the message Medina had left in drafts. Activate Black Swan Protocol. Buyback clause at 0 nominal value. I didn't send it, I just left it ready. Then my phone vibrated with a call from Medina. "Talk to me," I answered. "Board is connected. Audit 2, he said. "Rodrigo is trying to convene a parallel meeting with his lawyer to declare you temporarily unfit due to instability. It's his smokescreen. But we have something. Go. The prenup. The infidelity clause has a trigger. If there's documentary proof and it's activated notarily, Rodrigo loses rights to indirect participation and linked benefits. And with the secret investment agreement, we can execute the buyback and take his stake down to 0 nominal." I felt the ground stabilize under my feet. It wasn't revenge. It was math. "How do we trigger it?" I asked. "I need 2 things," Medina said. 1, proof of the affair under chain of custody, something strong. 2, your presence, even by video, before Notary Calderon to record it. I looked at Camilla. I looked at Rodrigo. I looked at the code still glowing on Camilla's phone, and I understood the detonator was sitting right there, waiting, like a fish biting the hook without knowing the line is tied to a boat. Just then, the living room speaker clicked on again. The building reception sounded nervous. "Ms. de la Vega Montiel, the envelope for Mr. Salas has been photographed, but it has a notary seal, and the courier says if it isn't delivered within 5 minutes, it will execute automatically." Rodrigo lifted his head as if he just heard the word salvation. See? He whispered. That's it. I already won. I didn't move. I only looked at the police officer and the judicial officer. I want that envelope retained and logged, I said, because if it executes automatically, then it's not an envelope. It's a trigger. And in my ear, Doña Inez murmured the sentence that chilled my pulse for the first time all night. Ma'am, the intruder didn't come alone. Outside, by the hallway window, there's another man with a briefcase, and he's looking straight at this house. I didn't look on instinct. I looked on procedure. I opened the exterior side camera. The image was clean. Cold street lamp, trimmed hedges, and a man in a dark coat with a rigid briefcase, standing at the edge of my driveway like he'd studied the terrain. He didn't look like a thief. He looked like a courier with a script. My phone buzzed on the living room table. A short vibration. Rios. I didn't open it yet. First, I sealed the perimeter. I activated Perimeter Containment Level 2. Side doors locked. Garden access closed. Exterior lights at 30% so the cameras could see without advertising an alarm mode. No sirens, just friction. Aguilar Sanchez, I said to the gated community guard, I need your men to keep all exits in sight, but no one touches anyone. Observation and documentation only. Understood, ma'am, he replied, and his tone was no longer, we were called about a husband. It was, this is an incident. Rodrigo heard the word perimeter, and his face hardened. Are you going to lock us in? He said, as if I were the villain. I'm containing an intrusion, I replied. You are part of that intrusion until proven otherwise. Over the speaker, the building reception insisted again. Ms. De la Vega Montiel, the courier says if the envelope isn't delivered to Mr. Salas within 5 minutes, it will execute automatically. Execute automatically isn't courier language, it's system language, digital signature language, token language, trap language. I looked at Camilla's phone on the table. The alert was still there. Code received, confirm sign-in. That was the real trigger. The envelope was smoke. The code was the fire. Office, I said into the speaker, do not hand anything over. Ask the courier for identification. Have Mr. Aguilar retain the envelope in the secure box and log it on CCTV. I want photos of the seal, front and back. Now. Understood. Rodrigo made a controlled gesture of frustration, like I was ruining a routine process. You're making a mistake. That envelope is mine. And if it's so yours, I said, it can wait. With a record. The older officer leaned toward the judicial officer. This man is very interested in a notarized envelope and in getting the homeowner out without an order. Smells like a maneuver. The judicial officer gave a dry nod and pointed at the intruder. Identify yourself properly and tell us who paid you. The intruder looked back at Rodrigo. Rodrigo burned him with his eyes. I don't remember the name, the intruder stammered. They contacted me with a burner phone. They told me blue folder, signal jammer, and then digital signature. Digital signature, repeated, confirmed. It wasn't intuition anymore. It was a pattern. My phone buzzed again. This time, I opened it. A message from Rios. Alert. A reset was requested for your corporate digital signature, token, from an external IP, method, OTP via SMS. The OTP was sent to Camilla's phone, number linked as recovery contact. A clean, cold chill ran through my chest. Not sadness. Technical disgust. Someone had set the Mistress as the security backup for my corporate identity. You don't do that for love. You do it for takeover. I looked at Rodrigo without raising my voice. Your system just tried to reset my digital signature by sending an OTP to Camilla's phone, I said slowly, so it would be recorded. Do you want to explain that to the judicial officer, or do you want me to? Camilla's eyes flew open as if someone had undressed her in a boardroom. I didn't do anything. He told me it was normal. Her voice broke. Rodrigo clung to his last mask. That's a lie. Elena manipulates everything. She's making it up. I didn't argue. I pointed to the notification still visible on Camilla's screen on the table. I didn't touch it, just pointed. There, I said to the judicial officer, OTP sign-in, with time, with a notification. The judicial officer stepped closer, pulled out his notebook, and told the officer, Photograph the screen as part of the record, and the device is to be seized for preservation. Camilla took an instinctive step toward her phone. No! The officer raised a hand, not aggressive, just containment. Ma'am, don't touch that. It's evidence. On the exterior camera, the briefcase man took a step back and lifted an earpiece to his ear. He wasn't speaking loudly, but the gesture was clear. He'd received confirmation. Doña Inés tightened the cloth in her fingers. Ma'am, should I call Mr. Esteban again? No, I said. Let him move. If they're following him, I need them recorded, following him somewhere with public cameras. That turns a tale into evidence, not a threat. Rodrigo heard the word evidence, and a low, venomous sentence slipped out. Incredible. You turn everything into a trial. And there it was. He hated that the world could remember. My phone vibrated with a call. Attorney Medina. Tell me, I answered. Elena, audit is connected, he said. The board wants an immediate report. Attempted credential takeover plus transfer order. And there's more. A parallel meeting has appeared, convened by a notary who isn't Calderon. They're trying to register a provisional removal agreement, claiming you lack capacity. It's smoke. Could the notarized envelope be that? I asked. It could be a formal demand or an act to pressure you, he said. But the real strike is the token. If they get in with your digital signature, they can make corporate and bank moves look like consent. I stared at Camilla's seized phone on the table like it was an insect under glass. We already have it contained, I said. Good, Medina said. Then we moved to the inside trap. I want Rodrigo to believe he can still complete the signature, so he incriminates himself trying, but without succeeding. Understood, I said, barely blinking. I hung up, and I shifted my stance in front of Rodrigo. Less wall, more bait. Rodrigo, I said calmly, if what you want is to fix it, explain who the man with the briefcase is outside, and explain why Camilla is the recovery contact for my digital signature. Rodrigo opened his mouth, and the doorbell rang again. Not the house bell. The exterior corridor bell picked up by the camera. Someone was at my front door, on screen. The briefcase man was now at my threshold. Aguilar Sanchez approached from the other side of the garden, keeping distance, tablet in hand. Sir, identify yourself. His voice carried, firm. The man lifted a credential toward the camera. It wasn't clear enough to read, but the gesture was unmistakable. Official presentation. The officer looked at my exterior feed. Do you authorize us to open? I'm not opening the front door, I said. But I authorize identity verification from outside, with an officer present, and I want the briefcase in view. The officer nodded, signaling Aguilar Sanchez to coordinate from outside without letting him in. The camera caught the exchange. Aguilar Sanchez kept 2 meters. The man spoke, showed a sheet of paper, then gestured toward the briefcase as if it were the deliverable. My phone buzzed. A message from building reception. Photo of seal. Notary L.R. Active requirement. Courier insists. It executes via telematics. Notary L.R. wasn't Calderon. It was another notary, or a seal used as disguise. And suddenly, everything clicked like an equation. 2 simultaneous triggers. 1 physical, briefcase at my door, to distract and pressure. 1 digital, OTP on Camilla's phone, to execute automatic. Rodrigo wanted me looking at the door while Camilla accidentally tapped confirm. I didn't look at the door. I looked at Camilla. Don't move, I told her, not shouting, but with an authority even she understood. Camilla was pale. I just wanted to... Stop, I said. And listen, if you touch that code, you become part of the case file. Not the love story, the case file. The judicial officer wrote without looking up. So did the police. Rodrigo needed speed. The OTP window was short. The envelope executed in 5 minutes. And then Rodrigo made a mistake because he was in a hurry. He looked at Camilla's phone and said too much. Give it to me. I'll do it. The room went silent. The officer took 1 small, definitive step forward. You'll do it, he repeated. What exactly were you going to do with a code that doesn't belong to you? Rodrigo blinked, tried to backpedal. It was a way to protect. For the first time, the judicial officer lifted his eyes, sharp. Mr. Salas, Your words are being recorded, and your access attempts too. Rodrigo scanned the room. Uniforms, the briefcase on camera, the intruder cuffed without theatrics. Camilla's phone seized on the table, and for the first time, he understood he wasn't in his office. He was in a scene where he didn't control the record. My phone buzzed with a new message from Medina. Bank risk blocked the transfer. Audit ready for full hold. Board is waiting for your signal to execute zero nominal buyback. I need only one phrase. Signature completed. That phrase, the hidden letter. My thumb hovered a millimeter from sending it. But first I needed one more thing for the prenup trigger. Clear proof of infidelity. And mine the financial link. I had transfers in motion. What I still needed was the intimate, undeniable piece. Under chain of custody. I looked at Doña Inés. Inés, I asked, did the hallway camera record Rodrigo's conversation with Camilla here when he said, "I'll fix it tonight"? Yes, ma'am, with audio, she answered without hesitation. And then I remembered something even better. Minutes earlier, in this living room, Camilla had screamed, "Rodrigo chose me," with police present. It wasn't proof by itself, but paired with bank records and the OTP, it built intent. The officer spoke into his radio. We have a second external element at the door and an attempted digital access in progress, proceeding to identify the subject with the briefcase. On the exterior camera, Aguilar Sanchez asked the man to open the briefcase. He hesitated, then opened it slightly. A stack of documents appeared and a folder with a seal, and through the camera audio, I heard a word that raised the hair on my arms. Irrevocable power. Rodrigo's lips tightened. Camilla went still. The intruder lowered his head, as if he knew the script was collapsing. My phone vibrated one last time. This time it was, "Esteban," I answered. "Ma'am, I'm entering the Castellana parking, level 2. The gray car came in behind me. It's on camera. Do I activate the exchange plan?" "Activate," I said, "and don't look back. Just record." I hung up. I looked at the seized phone with the OTP still alive. I looked at Rodrigo, and I knew the next minute would define everything. Either he pulled off a fake digital signature, or I executed Black Swan and cut the ground out from under his stake. I hit send in the encrypted chat to Medina. One sentence. Signature completed. And the second it went through, the living room speaker came on again. Building reception now bordering on alarm. Ms. de la Vega Montiel. They've just received a telematic notification. It says, "Provisional removal of administrator, effective immediately." Rodrigo smiled for the first time in 10 minutes, like he thought it was checkmate. I raised my eyes, very slowly. "No," I said softly. That was the trap. And my phone buzzed with Medina's reply. Immediate. Buyback executed. Rodrigo's participation. Zero nominal. Board is on the line. They want to hear your voice now. Rodrigo clenched his jaw. He didn't answer. My phone buzzed. A message from Rios. Confirmed. An attempt to access your home automation system via a corporate VPN associated with Rodrigo. Exact time, IP. I'm keeping it under retention. Corporate VPN. Not just him. His infrastructure. His operational footprint. Thank you, I murmured, and forwarded it to Medina's encrypted chat with a single line. Continued conduct confirmed plus IP. The officer spoke over the radio to another unit. 2 sentences. No theatrics. I'm requesting a preventive seizure of Mr. Salas's phone and any nearby devices. Risk of sabotage. Rodrigo took a step back. You can't touch my things. We can preserve them, the judicial officer said, if they're linked to an ongoing incident. And they are. One of the officers approached the sideboard and picked up Rodrigo's phone with gloves, the way you handle a weapon without drama. Rodrigo tried to protest, but the officer held his gaze. Not negotiable. Camilla let out a thin breath. She had just understood that Rodrigo wasn't intense. He was operational. I opened the home automation panel and saw the detail. The attempt had been to change a profile. Primary administrator. A direct strike at my control. I enabled. Audit mode. Blocks administrative changes. Forces local 2-factor and mirrors every attempt in the logs. No siren. Just a wall. Blocked, I said out loud. And logged. Rodrigo closed his eyes for a second. The judicial officer looked at me. Ma'am, do you want to request a restraining order or protective measures? The question was valid, but I wasn't turning this into melodrama. This was still a war of procedures. I'm requesting safeguard measures for the residents and the assets, I said, and that it be prohibited for Rodrigo to approach the holding systems and documentation. Tomorrow, at the notary, I'll formalize the civil part. Civil part landed like a sentence. Rodrigo felt it. The officer's radio crackled with new information from Castellana. Unit reports. The seized folder is already in transit. It contains an Administrator Consent Act referencing a digital signature, but the platform shows certificate revoked. It's now classified as an impersonation attempt. Perfect. The revocation had turned a weapon into a boomerang. When that folder arrives, I said, I want photos, sealing, and it attached to the case file. And I want a certified copy for the bank. The judicial officer nodded. Rodrigo tried one last move. Psychological, not technical. He turned to me and spoke in a low, intimate voice, as if we were alone. Elena, you and I both know this can destroy you too. The company, your reputation. Do you really want that? I looked at him, and in my head, 5 things flashed. The blue folder, the jammer, the OTP, Esteban blocked, and now the home automation attempt, all within 48 hours. A pattern doesn't destroy reputations. It corrects them. What destroys is sustained lying, I said. I'm just cutting the wires. Camilla, eyes wet, spoke for the first time without a script. Rodrigo, you told me it was your company. Rodrigo didn't even look at her. Not my problem, he muttered. And then she did something unexpected. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The officer tensed. Don't touch anything in your bag, he ordered. Camilla raised her hands. Open. It's a receipt and a note. I kept it because it felt strange. The judicial officer stepped closer and told her exactly how to hand it over without contaminating it. Place it on the table. Don't handle it further. Camilla obeyed. The paper contained 2 ugly, useful things. A hotel reservation on Serrano paid with a corporate card, and on the back, a note in Rodrigo's handwriting. Recovery, blue folder, plus OTP plus act. Tomorrow, Azor 8, Azor call close. A crime checklist, written by the author. I didn't breathe louder. I didn't smile. I just looked at the judicial officer. That, I said, is a map. He bagged it as evidence and sealed it. The officer looked at Rodrigo with a new expression. It wasn't possible anymore. It was probable. My phone buzzed. Medina. Elena, he said. With that note, tomorrow at the notary will be a formality. But watch it. Rodrigo may try one last move before dawn, file a false report, or provoke an incident to justify your removal. I'm with the police and a judicial officer, I said. Good. Then make sure he doesn't leave without it being documented, and prep the packet for Calderon, prenup, plus expenses, plus GPS, plus note, plus case record. Done! I hung up. At that moment, the exterior gate buzzer sounded again, but this time it wasn't a courier or a briefcase. It was the sound of an official vehicle entering the complex, lights reflecting on the glass. The officers exchanged looks. The Castellana patrol was arriving with the seized folder. The judicial officer adjusted his stance like someone who knew that handoff would close a circle. But just as the outer door opened under control, Rodrigo's phone, already preserved on the evidence table, buzzed. A pop-up notification flashed before anyone could block it. Received. Plan B. 0645, Serrano, heating plus keys. Doña Inez looked at me, frozen. Ma'am, 0645 is before the notary. My stomach tightened. Heating plus keys wasn't metaphor. It was home automation. It was physical access to the house once he couldn't touch systems from his phone. I looked at the officer. I want that notification photographed and attached, I said. And from now on, no physical key to this house moves without a record, because they've just activated a Plan B to get in before dawn. And in my head, the 48-hour clock ticked louder. There were less than 9 hours left. Plan B, 0645, Serrano, Heating plus keys. Not poetry. Logistics. And the worst part, early. Before the notary. Before I could lock the clause with Calderon. Before Rodrigo accepted, he'd lost. "Officer," I said, "I request it be recorded. A notification on Mr. Salas's phone indicates an operational plan at 0645 with direct reference to automation, heating, and physical keys. Risk of a scheduled intrusion." The officer photographed the screen. The judicial officer wrote it down. Those two gestures were my seatbelt. I took one breath and switched to execution mode. No drama, no speeches. "Doña Inez," I said, "key lockdown. Gather every physical copy into the safe. Now, leave only one on you, one on me, no one else." "Yes, ma'am." "Aguilar." I turned to the head of security. "I need an immediate cylinder change on the secondary door and a log of everyone entering the complex from 0530 onward, all on camera. If anyone shows up as technical service, keep them outside and fully identify them." "Understood, ma'am." "Officer," I said, "I'm requesting a preventive perimeter patrol starting at 0615. No sirens. Visible presence, documentation and ID checks for any third party." The officer nodded. That was institutional, not protect me. Procedure. Rodrigo, seated now with his face stripped of its mask, threw out a dry line. "You'll never sleep peacefully again after this." I looked at him with a calm that wasn't bravery. It was decision. "After this, I'll sleep with locks and records," I said. "What you call paranoia, I call operational continuity." The seized folder from Castellana arrived with the patrol. The judicial officer received it, sealed it, attached it. He scanned it and confirmed the essentials. Administrator Consent Act, reference to digital signature, certificate revoked, attempt. Attempt was the perfect summary of the night. I checked the time. This was no longer a theoretical 48 hours. These were real hours. I sent Medina a quick encrypted message. "Seized act in custody. Plan B. Or 645. Implementing key lockdown plus patrol. Calderon 0830. His reply came immediately. "Received. Board confirms. You remain. Rodrigo suspended. Bank maintains investigation. 09/15 internal hearing. Priority. Reach the notary without incident." There was no screaming climax. The climax was that everyone, finally, was obeying reality instead of Rodrigo. By 0620, the complex was in controlled mode. At 0638, Aguilar got the first confirmation. A service car trying to enter urgently. It didn't get in. It was logged, identified, fake. At 0645, exactly Plan B time, there was no intrusion. There were patrols, cameras, and doors that didn't yield. Rodrigo looked at me like he couldn't understand how a woman could dismantle his theater without breaking a glass. "And now what?" he asked, almost hollow. "Now the civil file closes," I said. Juiu 8:30. Notary Calderon, Calle Serrano. I arrived with Esteban, the black briefcase intact, Doña Inez as a silent witness, and a packet that looked like a novel but was only evidence, prenup, the infidelity clause, expenses, split transfers, GPS, logs, the seized act, the case record, ordered, time-stamped. Calderon didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Ms. de la Vega Montiel, do you reaffirm your opposition to any telematic act of disposition and report your signature as compromised?" "I reaffirm it." "Do you request activation of the infidelity clause and the use of resources trigger?" "I do." Calderon nodded with her pen as if she were closing a heavy door. Entered into record. At 09:15, the board and audit, Rodrigo walked in, wearing his CEO suit, and walked out with the silence of an ex-employee. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't need to. Audit projected the logs, our Salas ADM, export attempt, token reset, recovery contact added, sale attempt, telematic act, certificate revocation. Each line was a stone. The bank confirmed. The transfer to Camilla was canceled. The account placed under preventive investigation. Camilla, for her part, agreed to testify and hand over what she had. Not out of virtue, out of legal survival. The payoff was triple lac, exactly as it had to be. Legal. Notarial opposition filed plus clause, activated plus case record with chain of custody, plus documented impersonation attempt. Material. Transfer blocked, the nominal zero buyback consolidated. Operational powers suspended, access revoked, perimeter secured. Emotional. The house was my house again, not because of pride, because of record. At noon, I returned to La Moraleja. Doña Inés opened the door with the right key, a small gesture that meant everything. Esteban parked without looking back. Aguilar greeted me with official respect. There was no more verification at Mr. Salas's request. There was ownership. Rodrigo took one box of his things, no scene, no shouting, with an inventory sheet signed by the judicial officer. The final irony, in the end, he did sign something. But it wasn't my surrender, it was his exit. I saw him at the threshold, and he tried one last line to hurt me. You were always cold. I nodded. Calm. No, I was precise. I closed the door, not in rage, but with that click that had sparked my instincts at the beginning and now meant the opposite, real closure. And when silence filled the Italian marble room again, I understood that freedom doesn't feel like euphoria. It feels like a system that no longer trembles when a phone vibrates. The end.